In this lesson, we'll go over a practical example of round trip between DaVinci Resolve and Adobe Premiere Pro CC. As previously suggested, we'll be working with edited content, in other words, with a timeline completed in our nonlinear editor. We are in DaVinci Resolve, and we have finalized the cuts for our sample project. Our project resolution is set to HD 1080, and we're using 25 frames per second. We made two image adjustments when editing, so we'll keep an eye on how these changes are transferred into DaVinci Resolve. We have flipped this shot horizontally using the horizontal flip effect. And, in this one, we used 115% zoom, making the image slightly larger. Moving on to the first step of round trip, we continue by exporting the edit list. Adobe Premiere Pro CC offers all three options, that is, we can export either in the older EDL format, as well as in the more recent XML or AAF. Let's use two of these formats, the classic EDL list and the more modern XML format. We'll first export the EDL format, leaving all presets unchanged. When it comes to XML, Adobe Premiere uses the same list format as Final Cut Pro, thus we see the Final Cut Pro XML label within the menu. A notification appears on the screen inviting us to check the generated XML. After opening, we see that our horizontal flip effect has not been successfully transferred, so it's already clear that it won't be properly transferred into DaVinci. As we mentioned before, a reference video can be used to check the transfer. Therefore, we also export the video preview from our nonlinear editor. A lower quality will suffice. I select the compressed ProRes LT and half HD resolution, that is 960 by 540 pixels. We can obviously use any format DaVinci Resolve supports, even MP4, for example. It doesn't matter where the reference video is stored, but for easy orientation, I am placing it into the Edit List folder. This finalizes export in Adobe Premiere Pro, and we can move on to DaVinci Resolve. Once here, we open the Edit panel. In the timeline window, we open up the menu using the right mouse button and select EDL List Import. Check the preset parameters. Since a timeline of identical parameters, that is HD 1080 with 25 frames per second, is preset in the DaVinci Resolve settings, the automatic timeline setting option can remain unchecked. And click OK. However, the program notifies us that it is unable to import any of our videos, since the media pool is empty. It is because the EDL list import requires that we first place our source video clips into the media pool. So, let's open the media pool and import our two folders. In the DaVinci Resolve 11.1 version, an option was added to create bins in the media pool simply by dragging them into the media pool with the mouse. Next, we repeat the EDL list import. After clicking OK, the program asks us from which bins, that is video files, we wish to create our timeline. We select all available bins. As we can see, a timeline containing our videos has been created in DaVinci Resolve. But we need to make sure that everything was properly transferred from Adobe Premiere. To do that, we'll use a reference video which we'll first need to import into the media pool. It's crucial to import the reference video properly, since reference videos are not imported the same way as our source clips. Already when importing, it must be checked in the menu as an offline reference. A small label is then attached to the reference video at the bottom corner that indicates all our reference videos in the media pool. These can be placed anywhere, but for easy orientation, I'll move it into the master bin. We now return to the timeline and call up the menu using the right mouse button and assign our reference video to the timeline. As we can see, the DaVinci timeline which we had obtained from the EDL list can be monitored in the right window. Switching the button, the reference video is displayed on the left. Comparing the left and the right windows, we can evaluate differences between the Adobe Premiere Pro and the DaVinci timelines. The first two shots have been transferred correctly. In the third shot, the horizontal flip has not transferred properly. The next section looks fine. And here an entirely different clip has been loaded. And neither the zoom we applied to the image transferred correctly. Let's fix the three issues we have found. The shot can be flipped horizontally in one of two ways. We can either go to the media pool, locate the clip, and select horizontal flip from its attributes. Let's now make a step back and undo the correction. The other option is the color panel. The horizontal and vertical image flip button is located in the sizing window. The next incorrect shot also displays an indicator, an exclamation mark, which tells us that DaVinci Resolve has found an issue. By double-clicking it, we open up the issue details. As we can see, the software has found two identical shots and cannot independently decide which shot is the correct one. Both files have identical names, as well as time codes. I have deliberately created two similar files in order to show you how to proceed in such cases. It happens sometimes, when working on larger projects, that the source files contain identical time codes or names. The solution is simple. Click the correct choice. Next, the image zoom issue can be corrected under Clip Settings in the so-called Inspector. If we remember our zoom's numerical value, we can enter it directly. If we don't remember the exact zoom value, we can again use the color panel and the sizing window. We call up the menu with the right mouse click and select the offline reference clip as the reference we wish to use. The most advisable way is to layer the two clips, that is, DaVinci Timeline and our reference video, using the mix mode. Next, we adjust the zoom parameter in the sizing window until we reach the desired value. That solves the last issue, and the DaVinci timeline is identical with the reference video, that is the cut from our Adobe Premiere Pro CC. Now let's return back to the beginning and see how DaVinci Resolve handles an XML edit list. We have opened a new, blank project, there are no source videos in the media pool, and no timeline has been created. In the timeline window, we import the edit list, this time the XML. As we can see, the XML format offers a few more import options than EDL. We can again check that we do not wish to change the project parameters, and the very next option allows us to import the source clips automatically, which will save us time since we don't need to move them into the media pool manually. We can further see that the XML format gives us the option to import shot sizing information. We then compare the generated timeline with our reference video. In the media pool, we locate the source files that have been automatically imported when creating the timeline. We import the reference video and begin comparing. Again, there is the image flip issue, so let's solve it quickly. Next, everything seems okay. And again, we come across an incorrect clip. Yet, there is no exclamation mark in the viewer window. This is because the automatic XML list import has loaded only one of the two clips whose time codes or names were identical. The only way to fix this is manually. Let's first import the correct clip into the media pool. We'll leave it selected in the media pool window. With a right click on the timeline, we call up the menu and select Force Conform with selected clip. We have thus replaced the incorrect clip with the correct one. Next, we see that the image zoom information has transferred properly, and so the timeline has been corrected. Just as a note regarding reference video, it may happen that despite doing everything correctly, no images will be displayed. In such cases, the most frequent reason is an incorrect reference video time code. If that happens, it can be adjusted under Clip Attributes in the media pool. We are now ready to start with color corrections, in other words, with grading using the color panel. I will skip this part here and move ahead to the point when our grading is completed and we're trying to move it back to Adobe Premiere Pro CC. Let's switch to the delivery panel. We can keep the basic settings. There is an Adobe Premiere preset, but as I have mentioned before, Adobe Premiere Pro CC works seamlessly with the Final Cut Pro XML format. Therefore, we select this round trip. The resolution and compression settings may not exactly correspond to the source files. We can set here new parameters if we plan on continuing in a different resolution or codec, although I'll keep the settings identical to our source clip settings. So what does this round trip preset do? It exports graded files as well as a new XML edit list into a selected folder. We're ready to export. And when it's completed, we check that the files have been saved properly. We should find the graded video files in the selected folder together with the XML edit list. This completes our work in DaVinci Resolve, and we can move back to our nonlinear editor, the Adobe Premiere Pro. Here we select Import and load the stored XML. It automatically loads the graded files into a new timeline. For clear organization, the graded files can be placed in the space above the original ungraded files. This concludes round trip between Adobe Premiere Pro CC and DaVinci Resolve.